Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Troy.
Hey, Stephanie. So I don't know if Doug is available. He's connecting now. I'm just going to need to be made co-host so I can share my screen.
Okay, well, Doug, I have to do that. Give us just a minute.
Yeah, no worries. I like your hat, by the way, Brandon. Go Bulls.
Thank you. Yep, no question. Thanks a lot.
No worries. You know what? Actually, it's already set up so I can share my screen, so no worries. We don't have to do any changes to that. So.
Okay, he may have done that when he got it started this morning.
Perfect.
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for your patience. I was just on the other line. Let's give, I think we got a few more people coming, so let's give them just a second to jump on if that's all right with everybody. All right, there's Juliana. Let's let her get connected and we can get started. There she is. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Some other folks might join us, but Stephanie and Troy are not going to wait around all day for us, nor would I expect them to. Thank you. Thank both of you so much, Troy, for stopping by and introducing yourself, and Stephanie for all the assistance you've given the team over the last couple of years. We really love working with you guys. You make it easy for us, and we really appreciate the opportunity to learn even more from you today. So with that being said, I'll shut up and give you guys the floor.
Awesome. So I'm going to get going first, and then Stephanie will probably talk about some best practices on the tail end, especially in regards to the market conditions that we're currently in. So today I'm going to be talking about HVAC, and this is going to be fairly interactive, a lot of slides. So I'm going to start sharing my screen because I do have a PowerPoint. That way you don't have to look at me. So if everybody can see that, just thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So just to give you a little background on myself, I am Troy. Most people call me Troy or Troy H because they can't say my last name. And that's probably the most common question I get is, how do you say that? So it's actually Ukrainian. It's Haris Simchuk. But in the process of the class, if you have questions, just unmute and just yell out, hey, Troy. Okay, that works much better. And then a lot of people wonder why I have a funny accent. And that's because I'm actually from Vancouver Island, Canada. So born and raised in British Columbia. Lived on the West Coast mainly, and about 7 years ago, I came to North Carolina. I'm a senior account executive with Old Republic Home Protection. I actually started in home warranty in 1995 in Los Angeles County, California. Started a business from ground up with family. And in 1999, I actually came over to Old Republic. and I worked with Old Republic, and now it's been 17 years. So I have 21 years in the industry. So I've walked that walk a little bit. But one of the things is that in 2009, after the market really tanked, one of the things my wife and I always wanted to do is do something special. So we actually moved to Costa Rica, and we lived on a 65-acre coffee farm.
Wow.
I speak Spanish, and we did volunteer work for 2 years, but money runs out. And so I had to come back, and I actually moved back to Canada. So I didn't go back to home warranty. I did this HVAC estimator because my buddy had a company and he needed a sales guy. Sales is sales. And so I learned all about the HVAC system intimately. I also learned what creeps, crawls, slithers, when to get out of a crawl space very, very quickly. So this is basically how you have to gear up when you do a true HVAC estimation. So what I ended up finding is that when I did the estimating job and then I came back to Old Republic to North Carolina about 7.5 years ago, because I realized when I was approaching 40, my back did not really agree with this type of activity. And so I wanted something that was a little bit more white collar. But what I did find is that when I talked to my agents, the knowledge I picked up really can help my agents moving forward. So I'm the account executive, just so you know, in the Raleigh area. So I do like Raleigh, Cary, Fayetteville, up to Winston-Salem. And then we have obviously Stephanie, who's along the coast. But regardless, North Carolina has a very similar setup when it comes to HVAC systems. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Now, it's not going to be a class that's going to be about the nuances. It's going to be about what you see and how to make your job easier moving forward. Because here's the thing, is the second question people normally ask me is, hey, Troy, which plan should I get for my clients? And when they ask me that, I typically will ask the question, well, tell me about the HVAC system. And this is their response. It's like, I don't know. I don't know anything about HVAC. I just know it's expensive. Well, we're going to fix that for you today. We're going to identify the systems. We're going to talk a little bit about the refrigerant in the systems, how to know which is which, how to negotiate that, and also going to talk about how to know how old the system is too. So Pico's with me right now. Someone just honked their horn outside, so he is right here growling. So I apologize. This is the part of Zoom that we all have to live with. So be patient. He's usually pretty good, but it's the question mark. There's an old saying, the only bad question is what type of question? Can anybody answer that for me?
No question.
One you didn't ask.
Yeah, exactly. The no question, the one you don't ask. So again, if you feel like there's a question, it's not a dumb question. Please speak up, say something. It's probably easier, since we're not a large group, just to unmute and do it that way. Okay. And as I mentioned, I apologize, but Pico's usually pretty good. He'll fall asleep here in a second.
Don't apologize. You rehearsed that. The dog is on the slide. That was
That's right.
the timing I've seen. That's fantastic.
I purposely put him on there so that way I have a little wiggle room in case he acts up, right? So
Fantastic.
So let's go ahead and get into this class. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the system. So what's the difference between a gas pack and a split? We might have heard those terms before, right? So I'm going to show you some really simple things here, okay? So let's say, for example, you go out to a property and you notice that the unit is separate from the home. If you notice here in this picture, there's the wall, and then there's the unit, and there's space. And you see that black sponge insulation that's called Armaflex that covers the copper lines. That is a key giveaway that we call this a split system. The reason why they call it a split system is it's split apart. You have an outside unit, which can be either an air conditioner or a heat pump. And then you have an inside unit, which we like to call the furnace, which is actually, in technical terms, the air handler. Now, the air handler can be found in either the crawl space or basement, a closet somewhere in the home, or up in the attic. So if you wanted to, you could crawl through that whole house and try to find that furnace or air handler, and then you would know it's a split system. Or you could do it the easy way, which is just go outside, take a quick peek, and if you see it separate from the home, you know it's going to be a split system. So again, air conditioning or heat pump. Now, a lot of people might ask you the question, what's the difference? So I'm going to give you a real simple explanation if a client ever asks you that. A heat pump is an air conditioner that runs forward and backwards. Simple as that. Because in the summertime, when you put your hand over top of an air conditioner, what type of air do you feel? Is it hot or is it cold? It's hot, right? So it's basically taking the energy, that heat, from the inside of the house and it's putting it outside. The absence of heat is cold air, yin and yang, so you have air conditioning. A heat pump can do the exact same thing in reverse. It pulls heat from the outside, puts it inside the home. So if you walk outside in the wintertime and put your hand over top of the unit, you're going to feel cold air conditioning, because that's really what it is. So if someone ever asks you that, it's real simple. It's just an air conditioner that runs backwards. So this is a split system. If you had X-ray visions, you could track those copper lines and it would actually hook somewhere to that furnace or air handler. And what it's hooking into is actually the inside coil. And that's what actually produces in the summertime all the dripping moisture. Because as that air conditioner is running and that cold refrigerant is running through these coils back and forth, it actually also sloughs off a lot of that humidity in the home, and it actually runs out through the condensation line. So that's as far as technical we're going to get when it comes to the systems, because that's as much as a real estate professional you really need to know. Let's go ahead and look at the second most common system. So we like to call these gas packs. Have you ever heard that term before? All right, so they're real popular, gas packs. Basically what a gas pack is shortened for package, because everything is packaged together now outside of the home. Gas signifies the type of heat it has, so it could be propane or natural gas. So here's an example of a gas pack. Two things you'll find. One is it's larger, because everything is packaged outside. You're not going to find an air handler or furnace somewhere in the home with this system. But to give it the key giveaway to know that it's a package unit is, if you notice, there's now a different relationship between the outside of the home and the unit. What do we see between the two now? Can anybody tell me?
Well, it's connected to the structure.
That's right, it's now connected. So if you have something that's connected to the structure, sheet metal, and you can't have that space or see through it, you know it's going to be a package unit. So if we had, again, X-ray vision, we would see that everything that was in that split system is now packaged together. You have your compressor, you have your blower that usually goes inside the air handler, you have over here your burners, and if you look over in this middle corner here, that's that same A coil. It's all there together, and that's why that unit is so large. Now, again, this is a package unit that is using gas or a gas pack, and we know that because of the hard pipe that comes out, which is your gas line, and then if you notice the yellow shutoff valve. So they can come also as heat pumps. So you can have a packaged heat pump, but this is kind of the dead giveaway. Two reasons. One, shutoff valve, color is yellow or some type of yellow on there. And it tells you don't touch hot, because with gas packs, it has to exhaust off some of the excessive heat so it doesn't crack the heat exchanger. But just so you know, the yellow now signifies natural gas. As you know, the call before your dig guys come out sometimes and they'll mark up your yard, like they graffiti your yard, and all of a sudden you get these yellow lines and red and blue and all that. Each of those colors signifies a significant utility that's going into the home. So when they mark yellow on your yard, that means gas line. If they mark white, it's electrical. That's your electrical feed. If it's green, it's going to be your sewage. And then in blue is going to be your clean water to drink, or drinkable or potable water. And lastly, red signifies, your data, which would be like your AT&T Uverse, Google Fiber, or Spectrum, or what have you. So they're getting better at identifying these and coding them. So you see the yellow shutoff valve, and that signifies it's natural gas. Now, I want to show you another example of a gas pack. A lot of the agents sometimes will fall into the trap and they'll see this kind of flat space and they look at it and are like, oh, that kind of looks old school, so it must be old. Well, it's actually not. It's just a different layout. It's still a gas pack. It functions exactly the same. It's just, instead of kind of like a two-story home with rooms, it's more of an up and down townhome. So you can see right here, this is your full air conditioner, and over here is your full furnace. We know it's a gas pack. One, it's a package unit because it's connected to the home. We see that sheet metal, there's no space. And again, we see that yellow, signifying natural gas, shutoff valve, hard pipe, and this is again your stack that exhausts, and it says don't touch, it's hot. So those are your two major systems now. So we have a package unit and we have a split system. Lastly, and these are things I think you're starting to see a little bit more in the homes, these are called ductless mini splits. They're becoming more popular in additions, bonus rooms. Sometimes people put them in their sunrooms. So again, these are ductless mini splits, so they don't attach typically to ductwork. The inside mounts to the inside wall, high up on the ceiling, in usually a large room. And the outside, and the reason why they call it mini is really small. It's like a eighth or maybe like a sixth of the size of a typical air conditioner. And they come in heat pumps or air conditioners, are all electric. But you'll know it's a mini split because it's usually almond in color. It's about 1 foot deep, 3 feet wide, and about 2.5, 3 feet tall. And they usually have like a TV brand name on the outside, like Samsung, LG, Fujitsu, Mitsubishi, because they're typically made in Japan or Korea. These are really efficient, excellent when it comes to how quiet they are and how well they work. But we're going to talk a little about warranty too in the process of this. Just be aware that the majority of home warranty companies exclude these from their plans. So they'll just say excluded or not covered ductless mini splits. With the exception of a company like Old Republic, we actually include those, which is huge because these are still not cheap. They're about $3,500 for a new system. All right, so if you see those, again, you have Old Republic, as long as it's not put in a sunroom, we would cover that. Okay, it has to be true heated square footage of the home. So let's take a look at just a quick mini test here. We have 2 units side by side. Now we can kind of see dimensions, right? So the one on the right, is that going to be a split system or is that going to be a package unit? This one right here.
Split.
That's right. Yeah, it's a split. Now, how do you know, Brandon, it's a split? I'm going to put you on the spot.
It's separated from the property.
That's right. Yep. So we see it set back from the property. It has that kind of line set that's covered with the Armaflex, that insulation. So it's a dead giveaway. So that means you can just tell by dimensions. The other one's going to be a package unit. So if we look behind that unit, what would we see relationship to the home in that unit now?
A duct.
That's right. Yeah, there's going to be those ducts that are covered with sheet metal, that sheet metal kind of shroud they put over top of it. And that's why that sheet metal is there, by the way. They put that there because you have your supply and return, and that's usually soft. So if you don't put metal around it, that means that mice, rats, possums, raccoons are all going to decide to chew through that and make that their new home. Why wouldn't they? They'd have heating and air conditioning, right? So that's what that sheet metal is for, is to keep out the rodents and the pests. Now this one here, by the way, is actually not a gas pack. This is a package heat pump. And I'll show you another example of that later on. One of the dead giveaways is that you won't see any gas lines connected to it. And also, instead of saying, don't touch, it's hot, it says, don't touch, you'll get electrocuted and die. So that's usually a dead giveaway as well, because it's using 220 volts of electricity to run through that system. So now this is a question going back to home warranty. So do you have a dollar cap towards repair or replacement of the HVAC system? So the reason why we bring this up is, as you know, there's a lot of warranty companies here in North Carolina. At last count, there was 13 of them. And a lot of the smaller companies just don't have the dollars to be able to cover the full cost of replacement now. I was talking to one of my top contractors just 2 days ago, and I asked him, what's the bare bones cost to replace an HVAC system, a split system now in North Carolina? He said, well, 3-ton, which is average size, bare bones, $8,500. It went up about $1,200 from last year. So these things are getting more and more expensive. But I just wanted to show you an example. This is my personal home. This was 7.5 years ago when this was replaced. And it was a Train. So obviously you pay more for that brand name. $7,600 for the installation. The person who lived in the home was kind enough to leave this behind in a nice little folder. But if you notice here, they obviously didn't have $7,600 burning a hole in their pocket. So they had to finance that. And that's usually on like a credit short term, which is 12 to 21%, depending on the person's credit history. So here's the concern that we see, and I know Stephanie's going to talk a little bit about this. The average American has less than $1,000 in savings, 69% of Americans. And if you're working with a client that can only put 3% down on a home, and you go to closing and there's no warranty, will they have the money to be able to come up with that type of money or that type of cash to replace the system? So without a warranty, a lot of them become really house poor very quickly. But just keep in mind, not all warranty companies are created equal. Those newer companies, or some of the companies, the way they have them structured, they're putting dollar limits now on kind of what they're willing to spend. And once they hit that kind of cap, and this is for your buyer, the buyer is responsible to make up the difference. So let's say, for example, just for simple math, we round the price down to $6,000. And that's probably a little low now for a 3-ton system. But if company A, and this is a real figure, by the way, in North Carolina, has a $2,250 cap for replacement, that means your client's going to have to come out of pocket $3,750. Another warranty company has a $5,000 cap here in North Carolina. Much better, it's $1,000. With Old Republic, we don't have a dollar cap, so it doesn't become an issue. Now, we're not saying don't use those companies. It's just reworded. If you know you're working with a company and they have a cap of $2,250, just let your clients know that they're going to help toward the cost of replacement. They're not going to replace the system, because it opens you up to liability when you kind of overset that expectation for them. So again, this just shows you some of the importance of knowing kind of what's in the plans of each warranty company, because they're not all created equal. Another thing too is how many systems do you cover? Some companies are really limiting what they're going to cover on the actual amount of HVAC systems because they're so expensive. You think about it, if you have a house with 2-3 systems and they're $8,500 a pop, I mean, that's a huge investment for a warranty company to write on that plan. So some companies are saying that they cover 1 system, some will cover 2. Our company still states that we cover all systems on the property, and that includes, again, your ductless mini splits. So let's now switch gears. We're going to talk about refrigerant. This is the one I think we should be mainly concerned about, which is that Freon or R22. As of January 1st, last year, 2020, Freon or R22 was phased out. And the main reason why is because this is old technology and it was using CFCs. So in the goal and the process of reducing greenhouse gases, federal government, EPA, made a moratorium or a phase out of R22. So I'm going to show you how to identify it. I'm also going to talk about how this is not as scary as sometimes contractors or agents think it really is. Okay. So just so you know, Freon and R22, same thing. Freon is just Carrier's brand name. It's what they coined for R22. Kind of like we're getting into the season of allergies. And so when I have my sniffles, I reach for a Kleenex, but it's really not a Kleenex. That's just a name brand. It's tissue, right? Or when your kid falls down and they cut themselves, we put on a Band-Aid, but that's Johnson & Johnson. And that's what they've coined it as. It's really a bandage. So it's the same thing. Freon R22 is the same. Puron 410A is also the exact same product, okay? And this is also, Puron is Carrier's brand name for 410A. So I want to show you this, and if you're interested, if you want to type in the chat box your email, and I'll make sure I get you a PDF of this. This is the EPA document. This is a great tool to have for your arsenal, especially if you're representing a seller. The reason why I bring that out is sometimes a buyer will go in and they'll make an offer on a home, they'll do an HVAC inspection, and then what will end up happening is that the HVAC inspector will say, this system contains R22, it's illegal, it needs to be replaced. Because the thing is, they make money on replacements, not on repairs. So then the buyer comes back to you and says, hey, you have an illegal system, I need you to replace it because it has R22. You turn around and send them this document and say, actually, look at the timeline, there's nothing wrong with the system. Because as of January 1st, 2020, yes, R22 was phased out, but according to EPA, we can use old stock, refurbished and recycled R22, and it's not illegal all the way until January 1st of 2030. So we still have 9 years. And by the way, the majority of the systems, when we add 9 more years, are going to be so ancient and decrepit that they're going to have to be replaced anyways. So this is not an issue. There's still R22 available on the marketplace. Any questions in regards to that? Okay.
Hey, Troy, if you just send me that PDF, I'll get it out to the team.
Awesome. That makes it easier. Because I was just thinking, guess what? This is not my Zoom, so I can't actually copy everybody's email. So that's probably a better bet.
I'll make it easy.
Just dawned on me. Cool. All right. Yeah, this is great. I really think this is a great thing to have. And also, if your buyer is purchasing a home and they go, oh crap, this has R22 in it, it's not alarming. I mean, yeah, it's an older system. It means it's going to be replaced probably sooner than a newer 410A system, but it's not end of the world. I also wanted to show you a product that's available on the marketplace. Because of the fact that R22 was phased out, companies have actually created some products that are better than R22 that don't contain the CFC. So here's one example. It's called Blue On. And so basically, if you had an R22 system and there's no R22 available, not a problem. These guys can go out there, a contractor, and add this without doing any alterations to your system. And it works perfectly fine. It's actually more efficient. It runs at a cooler temperature and it doesn't contain CFCs. So again, R22 is not the end of the world moving forward. But here's the key. It's the cost, supply and demand. As you know, right now we're getting like insane demand and we have no supply of homes. So what ends up happening? Well, in my area in Raleigh, we're seeing agents posting, which I think is crazy. They shouldn't be putting this out there for public. $57,000 over asking, right? So people are putting these ridiculous offers in to get homes. Well, it's the same when it comes to R22. If they don't make it and yet there's still a demand for it, what happens to the price? Well, last year, this was the average price per pound of R22 was $150. So because of it, some of the warranty companies have put a dollar cap on what they're willing to spend for R22. And so you see here, like company B, at 10 bucks a pound, a typical 3-ton system takes 10 pounds. That means they pay 100. Your client pays $1,400. Old Republic and several other warranty companies do not have a dollar cap. So we actually take that hit on the chin. So the out of pocket for your client is $0. That's a big difference, especially as it keeps on going up in price. So this is where kind of like the rubber meets the road as well. If a warranty company only has to pay 100 bucks for refrigerant and they can do a repair and kind of kick the can down the road, they're going to do it. Because the fact is they didn't take that hit for the refrigerant. But with Old Republic, if we're going to have to pay for all that refrigerant and repair, and the repair doesn't work and we have to buy the refrigerant all over again, it's almost the same price as replacing it with a new system. More than likely, there's a higher probability of a new system being replaced. So just something to keep in mind. That dollar cap actually means a lot. So let's now switch into another gear. I'm going to show you now how to know if the system has R22, how old the system is, how big it is, how efficient it is, and if it's a heat pump or air conditioner. All that is actually available to you, and it's on the outside of the unit when you walk up to it. So this is an example of my own system. As you know, it's a split system because it's separate from the home. But when you look at that label, and by the way, Train American Standard, which are both the same company, are the easiest labels to read. So I'm going to just go over a quick synopsis of a few of them, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it yourself, okay? So let's take a look at, first of all, this Train. It tells you right here the type of refrigerant, and you see it's 410A. So that means it's not R22. This is the newer stuff. There's no CFCs. If there were CFCs in that unit, it would say HCFC, but they dropped the C, so it's not pollutant. Is it an air conditioner or is it a heat pump? Well, they tell you right here, it's an air conditioner. If it was a heat pump, Train would put on there right there, heat pump. How old is the system? This is what goes on the seller's disclosure, 6/2012. Also, how efficient is the system? Well, that is the number, the 5th number typically in a sequence on the manufacturer's label. And they put it right here too, under the model number or above, 15 SEER. Now, SEER is S-E-E-R, stands for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. Basically, it's miles per gallon for an air conditioning unit. Higher the number, more efficient, the more you pay to purchase that unit. That's just the way it works. So this one is 15. The federal standard right now is 14. The older units from the 90s were 10. So this is about 50% more energy efficient than a 1990s 10 SEER unit. And then lastly, the 36 is the size. You always divide that number by 12. And when you divide it by 12, you get a 3. And that signifies 3 tons. And a ton will usually cover between 450 to 750 square feet, depending on location, orientation, thickness and insulation in the walls, insulation in the attic and the crawl space, windows, and quality of doors. That's what I had to do as an estimator. That was where my job was. I had to be the Goldilocks, which means that when I looked at a home, because not every home is equal, I would have to find that just right for the home. So that's what a heat load calculation does. So let's just talk about real quickly tonnage. Why does 36 stand for 3 tons? It's because we're using old terminology for new technology. Case in point, let's say we buy, for example, a really big pickup truck that has a V10 in it. And we go to the dealer and the dealer says, this thing can pull anything. It's got 450 horsepower. You're like, dang, that's a lot of horsepower, but how many horses really do we know? Can we think about and visualize 450 horses tied together pulling a shell of a vehicle? No, we just know that the more the horses, the more powerful the unit is. So we're using an old terminology to talk about basically something in today's life that we live. Well, tonnage is basically a block of ice, a ton of ice that melts over 24 hours. So when we're talking 3 tons, it's 3 tons or 3 blocks of ice that melt over 24 hours. Because before Carrier invented air conditioning in the 50s, your grandparents or great grandparents didn't have air conditioning. They had ice boxes and ice chests, and they had to go to, if they were going places, ice houses. So there was reasons for that because that's how they cooled things. So whenever you see these numbers on the unit, you always divide it by 12, and that's what gets you the tonnage that we're talking about. That's as far as I'm going to go into that because it's kind of boring. Let's go ahead and look at a few more labels. So here's another example of a Train, American Standard. What type of refrigerant? Tells you right there, 410A. What type of a system is it? Tells you right there, it's a heat pump. How old is it? December of 2007. How efficient is it? 15 SEER. And how big is it? You divide that by 12, it's 3 tons. So you have all that information. And this is an 1,800 square foot rancher up in Virginia from this label here. Let me show you another example of a system. This is going to be a Goodman. And this is where sometimes agents kind of struggle because you'll go out to a Goodman and they have nothing on there that says how old it is. So if that's the case, this is a free app that you can download onto your iPhone or your Android. So I highly recommend it. I have agents that always give me feedback saying that they use this multiple times throughout the week in their showings and stuff like that. So this is what it looks like on the App Store. And again, it's completely free. It's in HVAC Calculator. And this is what it looks like on Google Play for your Android. I highly recommend if you get a chance, download it now because I'm going to show you how to use it. And again, it's free. So you might as well take advantage of this tool. So I'm going to give you an example of a situation. Let's say, for example, you go out to a property and it's a Goodman. You see the Goodman label on the outside of the unit and you walk up to it. The only thing you're going to know is what type of refrigerant and how efficient and how big it is. But let's take a look at it. It says factory charge is 410A. So obviously 410A signifies it's not going to be a super old unit because usually 2006, 2007 was when 410A was really starting to be used by the manufacturers. But the question is how old is the unit itself? Let's say, for example, you have a seller that says, I have no idea. I bought this home and this unit was already here. What do you put on the seller's disclosure? Or what should they put on the seller's disclosure? Or if you have a buyer that says, I'm a little concerned, is this an old unit? Well, let me answer that for you. So this is where that serial number and that app comes to play, and it's super easy to use. So we open up that app on your phone, Inspector Nation, and just use the HVAC manufacturing date tab. The rest of them, don't worry about it. That's just for inspectors. But this is something that you, the real estate professional, can really utilize. When you click on this, it opens up a little screen. So I have some screenshots here. So when you select manufacturer, just scroll down to the brand, which is Goodman. And then this is the actual serial number on that label, not the model number, but you want to use the serial number. And if anybody has that app open and has used it, if you want to hit calculate, you can tell me right now how old it is. Has anybody downloaded the app yet? Show of hands. Okay.
I'm doing it right now.
Sweet. All right. I'm going to give you another practice run at it then as you're downloading. I'm going to show you how easy it is to use. Or is it Jeannie or Janine?
Janine, is it 2016?
Yep. Perfect. So when she hit calculate, it actually came up as September 2016. So it actually deciphers the serial number for you because some companies will put year and month, or they'll do year and the week of the month. Some will put a year and a letter that represents the month. So everybody's different, but this will actually do that translating for you to give you an accurate calculation. Cool, right? So now we know this is going to be a September 2016 unit. We know it's 410A. We look at the model number and it says here the 4 stands for 14 SEER. The 18 stands for the fact it's 1.5 tons. So it's not a big unit. Smaller units obviously are cheaper to install. But is this an air conditioner or a heat pump? You look on here, there's nothing that indicates anything. So this is where you do one other step, and it's real simple. Just open up, for example, Google or Safari, and then just type in the brand name, which is Goodman, and that model number. And just by clicking on the actual Goodman manufacturing, it pops up and it tells you right there, it's a split system and it's a heat pump.
That's dumb. Why wouldn't they just put it on the label?
It's Goodman, and Lennox does the same thing. York, a lot of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not as smart about it when it comes to train. But again, remember these guys who go out there, like me as an estimator, I know just looking at the model number that it's going to be a heat pump, whereas they're not really building these to benefit real estate professionals. So I'm just trying to teach you how to navigate that. So now we go back to that unit and we know it's a 14 SEER, 1.5 ton, built in 2016 heat pump with 410A. You have all that information if you want to advise a buyer or if you need to assist your seller on the seller's disclosure. Here's another example of a system. This is, again, a Goodman. Is this a package unit or a split?
Package.
Yeah, we know it's a package because of that sheet metal. It's connected, right? So is it a heat pump or is it a gas pack? Well, let's take a look at that label and we can get some information off of it. Again, Goodman, very limited what they give you, but we do know it's 410A, so it can't be super old. Here's that serial number. So again, we open up that Inspector Nation, click on that HVAC manufacturer date, select Goodman. Now, Brandon, do you have that app open now?
I do, yeah. Let me.
Okay, do you want to try to tell me how old that is by just using that app by selecting Goodman and typing in that serial number?
Yeah, so you do have to select the manufacturer first, right?
Yeah, pick the brand name of Goodman.
4321. Okay, calculate. This looks like November 17.
There you go, November 2017. Not cool?
Yeah.
And there's no guessing game. It's there. So that's a screenshot of exactly what Brandon just pulled up on his phone. So now we go back to this and we can say, okay, that is basically a 3-year-old system. If we look at this late model number, it tells you it's 14 SEER. The 30 stands for the size, which is 2.5 tons. But it still doesn't tell you if it's a heat pump or if it's a gas pack. Now, we can look at it and they'll tell you, but if you want to just kind of make sure it's one or the other, just again, go back to Google, type in the brand, type in the model number, not the serial, but the model number. And then you just go down to their actual official website, click on that, and it comes up as a package heat pump. So going back, you look at that label. Now we know it's a heat pump. We know it's 14 SEER. We know it's 2.5 ton. We know it's 3 years old, and we know it has 410A. Now, what I thought was interesting about this house was it was a 1960s home on nice piece of land. Needed a lot of updating, but there's about $7,500 that's already been invested in that home when it comes to the actual system. And being that the system is efficient, obviously the cost of living in the home is much less. So that might be something nice that you can advise your clients because they can use that money maybe possibly towards some updates in the kitchen or a few other things. So sometimes, when the market will pivot a little bit and slow down, we can advise our clients maybe a little bit better when it comes to letting them know that they have a newer mechanical system that's already been invested in the home. And by the way, typically a system that is 5 years or newer should contain a manufacturer's warranty as well. So something to keep in mind. So let's just briefly look at the seller's disclosure, because a lot of agents sometimes will go, what in the heck does the state want from my seller? Because I can't even figure this out. So I'm going to just give you a quick little rundown on how you would fill this out real quickly. I would always start with number 11, because this is the one that really confuses even the biggest top producers in my area. What do I check? So what is the cooling source? Well, can anybody live on the coast or in Raleigh without air conditioning? No, right? One thing I've learned doing this for a long time, and especially over here, is hot people are mean people. You just can't live in a house without air conditioning. So they're really not asking you if it has air conditioning. They're asking you in what way is air conditioning getting into the home. So majority of the homes are always going to be central forced air. What that basically means is you have vents in the rooms and a return somewhere in the home. So if it's using ductwork, doesn't matter what you have on the outside. It can be a package unit. It can be a split system. It's always going to be central forced air. Only time you would use window or wall or other is if you have ductless mini splits for the entire home or little window wall units everywhere in the home. So once we've gotten that out of the way, it makes it a little bit easier because now we want to ask the question, what is the heat source? Well, if we look it up and it's a heat pump, we just check that box, we're done. If it's not a heat pump and it's a straight cool air conditioner, we're going to probably check the box furnace because again, they're going to be probably using forced air throughout the home. If they're using ductless mini splits, we may want to put that right here. And now also we know where to basically fill in and how to fill in the age of the system. Lastly, what is this dwelling fuel source? Anytime you click the box heat pump, you're always going to go electricity. You never really will click anything but electricity because the fact is a heat pump, again, is an air conditioner that runs forward and backwards, and air conditioning uses electricity to run that compressor. So if it's a natural gas or propane, like a gas pack or a gas furnace, that's when you would actually check these other two boxes. One of the easiest questions you can ask a seller if they're kind of stumped on it is during the wintertime, which of your utilities is the most? Or like, oh, I have to fill up my propane tank. Okay, well then you probably have propane for heat because you don't have a gas meter. Or my gas bill goes from $20 to $130. Okay, well you have a gas furnace. So just something there to make it a little bit easier for you as you're helping your sellers out. Lastly, before we wrap this up, I just want to talk about this little thing here before Stephanie talks. It's called AHRI, and this stands for Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute. Just so you know, in North Carolina and Florida, these two states are the only ones that have a rule that's written into their legislation that enforces what's called AHRI. Now, best way for me to explain it is Granimals, which you can still buy at Walmart. And if little Susie or Johnny needs to go to school and you want them to match, they just wear all the same kind of animal and they're going to coordinate from head to toe. Well, in order to produce an AHRI certificate, you also have to coordinate all the equipment, which means that you have to make sure that all the brands match and all the model numbers match. If they don't, you might not be able to pull a certificate from the database of AHRI. So here's the issue. And this is only split systems, not package units. Every few years, they change these model numbers. So when they change a model number and you cannot produce a certificate, let's say, for example, this model number does not match with your original equipment that's only a few years old, the actual inspector for the city, county can require that all equipment needs to be replaced to be compliant with AHRI. So
Okay,
this
so-
repair might be $1,200, but now they call in AHRI and you're now spending that $8,500 for that replacement. So as I mentioned, only 2 states enforce it. The rest of the 48 states at this moment have put it out of their legislature. So just so you know, warranty companies are in the business to replace what breaks, not to be compliant with a local law. So if we replace this A coil, and let's say, for example, inspector goes out there and says, I want that certificate and it can't be pulled with this new model number, they're going to force your client to replace that other equipment. And they might say, well, it's only 5 years old. It doesn't matter. You have to replace it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So good news. As North Carolina reps, Stephanie, myself, and one other rep, we lobbied for you guys for years. And our plan now includes the AHRI guarantee for all of our plans, from cheap to the best. So that means if we go out and replace this and the model numbers are thrown off and the inspector says, you got to replace that as well, Old Republic's going to pay for that. We'll absorb that cost for you because we know that when we do that, buyers get angry because again, they're hot and they're mean, and they're going to take me and you probably to small claims, and it just gets really ugly. So we don't want to do that to you. So we actually had that put into our plan. Lastly, I'm going to just real quickly talk about this because we're getting into warmer weather, but just put this in your database of memory. What should you do if the AC is below 60 degrees? The inspector says you can't turn it on. And I would say as agents, do not turn it on, because an agent in Sanford recently paid for a brand new system on a showing because they turned their AC on a seller during a cold day and they destroyed the system.
Yikes.
But if you run into that situation and you're like, I don't know exactly if this is an old system or if it's working, if you call around, find a reputable HVAC company, ask for a leak test. They can test the refrigerant and see if there's any leaks in the system without turning the system on. And some even have the skills and ability to test the compressor to make sure that it actually can turn on with electricity without even messing with the system. That usually costs about 75 to 125 bucks, but talk about peace of mind for your clients moving forward. Lastly, what coverage should I choose? This is again the question I always get. So if you have newer systems, you can get away with that essential or standard. If you have R22, go ahead and probably start looking at that ultimate or better. And then if you have a really old system, do the platinum plan, because that platinum plan is going to cover cost for modifications. Because the issue is now newer systems are larger to be energy efficient, not like cars where they get smaller. So not a big deal on the outside split system, because that outside unit has your yard, you got lots of room. But when you put that bigger system on the inside of the home, all of a sudden you might have a problem because you have to fix all of that and remodify it.
So what would you
Also-
recommend for somebody that has like a 2 system and one is like original house 2005 and one is 2019 for the upstairs unit?
Okay, so if I saw that as an
Yeah.
agent, I would try to negotiate the best warranty possible.
Yeah,
Case in
they said no
point-
to the warranty. So my buyer is going to buy the warranty and now we need to know which one to, we're getting an HVAC inspection, of course, but
Yeah.
I just need to know like how much can he expect Old Republic to help him if
All
that
right, so for that older system, when you do, let's say the ultimate, we would pay for, also all these plans are going to pay for AHRI if it gets called out, parts, equipment, labor, and refrigerant, all plans. But once you go to the ultimate, this is where the out-of-pocket costs kind of get covered, which is the cost for the permits, up to $100 a haul away, up to $250 for code upgrades, and also the cost to recapture, recover, and dispose through the EPA the refrigerant, the R22, because you can't put it in the atmosphere. Platinum will also include up to $1,000 towards modifications on that system. So if we have to remodify line sets, duct work, plenums, condensation line, we would cover that. Plus the platinum plan would cover any systems that fall under manufacturer warranty, because what people don't realize is warranty companies will always do this to manufacturer warranty. Because if we touch it, we screw up that manufacturer's warranty for the rest of the life of that home and that unit. So with platinum, what we do, and we're the only company that does this, and it's only on the platinum plan. If you have manufacturer's warranty and they don't cover the labor, and let's say the refrigerant, once you've done paying the contractor and they've done the manufacturer's warranty repair, submit bill to us, and then we'll reimburse you for that additional cost, which is kind of cool. All right. So that's typically how I would do it. But I was going to say, if you go out and you see 2 units, one new, one old, go with a better plan. Case in point, it's called planned obsolescence. When your right headlight goes out and you replace it, what happens 2 weeks later with the left?
Yeah.
It goes out, right? You're like, dang, I just thought I replaced that. I was like, no, it's the other one. They're designed for a certain life cycle. And once it exceeds it, it's probably going to break. So I have a couple examples here. And sorry, Stephanie, if I'm stepping on your toes, but we're going to go through a few things, okay? If, again, in this market, you have a situation like that, and the buyer says, I'm not paying for a warranty, and the seller says, I'm not paying for a warranty, and you're like, well, I'm not paying for a warranty. On our plan, and I'll send this to Doug too, it's going to be a PDF. We have an acknowledgement and waiver where just have your client decline coverage and then read the statement that they're not going to hold you responsible and sign and date it and put in your file, okay? Because again, when they get hit with that big fee, a lot of times they come back to you and they say, well, I expect you to help me out because, it's your fault for some reason that my HVAC failed. So something to keep in mind. But I was going to say, when you see systems like this, just like what you had said, get that HVAC inspection, have a home inspection. If you can, negotiate the platinum plan or at least the ultimate. If you see a label like this, 1993, R22, this is a 10 SEER system. This is not when will it break, or if it's going to, sorry, not if it's going to break, is when will this fail need to be replaced? Or if you see a label like this, 1988, my first car was an 88 Honda Accord, the headlights flipped up. It would actually have an antique plate on it now, right? Well, one flipped up, one didn't. So I was driving around winking at everybody. But the fact of the matter is this is 1988 and it says R22. So we know that that's going to be just a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb. So again, if no one's getting that warranty, get that waiver signed. At least do an HVAC inspection on that so you know what your clients are getting themselves into. Or if you see a label like this where it's so old that it doesn't have any indication of what it is because it's just worn off the ink, except for right here it says R22. I would definitely do an HVAC inspection because an HVAC inspector might be able to pull different panels that will actually have that label somewhere else. Maybe it's inside the furnace or inside the unit. But remember, a home inspector will not do that. As an estimator, I remember always turning off like the electricity to the panel, pulling the fuses, and then you still say a little prayer before you reach into that unit because it's 220 volts. It gives you a nasty shock when you mess with those. So just a couple key takeaways. And then is that okay, Doug, if Stephanie just talks about a few little things?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. So just remember with our company, this is why I've been with Old Republic for 17 plus years. It's really, to me, the HVAC. You buy the warranty due to HVAC. Everything else is just basically the icing on the cake and a cherry on top. Because the fact is we have no dollar limits on repair or replacement of HVAC systems. We cover all HVAC systems on a property. No dollar limits on the cost of refrigerant. As of last year, our 6.0 plan, and we're now a 6.1 plan, we covered that AHRI, so it's not going to come back and bite you. And then our plans include taxes, and they start at $385 for a townhome and $430, and that's still great because you're still getting the bulk of the cost covered. It's just once you upgrade into the Ultimate or Platinum, those out-of-pocket costs will also go away or really be reduced for your client. So with that said, I'm going to switch it over to Stephanie. And if you have any more questions, I'll stick around and we can always talk about those too as well. Okay. But I want to say thank you everyone for your time this morning.
Let me ask a question real quick for everyone's benefit. What if we, and you kind of alluded to it, but I just want to make sure that we have a clear understanding as a team. Obviously, we don't really expect warranties to cover anything pre-existing. So say, we get into a situation and yeah, it's working, but it's probably barely working. Will our buyers be in a good position if the sellers aren't willing to have it serviced or have it looked at or do anything? And we get a warranty, either we get the seller to purchase or they purchase it on our own. I feel like that line is probably kind of gray. So can you kind of just discuss general best practice language we should use in a situation like that for setting expectations for our buyers?
Well, I'm going to give that to Stephanie because one, she was an agent before, and obviously she's working probably most closely with y'all on the coast. I don't know if anybody here is from Raleigh because that's my area. But okay, Brandon, okay, sweet. So Stephanie, you want to answer that? And I'm going to let you take that lead.
Sure. So the general rule for Old Republic is whatever system or appliance that we're dealing with must work the day of closing. So when you're doing your walkthrough inspections the morning of closing, then you need to check all those systems and appliances to make sure that they are working as the manufacturer intended the day of closing. Now, if this HVAC system that you're talking about, Doug, should happen to break 2 weeks later, then that kind of opens up a little can of worms because the homeowner's going to call in a claim because that's what they're told to do. And Old Republic may very well say claim denied because it's a pre-existing condition. An air condition can't break in 2 weeks. Well, yes, it can. I've seen it happen. You've probably seen it happen. And that's where Troy and myself and all the other account executives, we go to bat for you. And if you say, we did our walkthrough inspection, that unit was working at the time of closing, and 2 weeks after closing, it worked, then Old Republic is going to cover that system. Am I correct, Troy? Yep. So that's kind of where we get involved and we help you and we build that relationship with you to make sure that your client looks at you as the superstar that you got this done for them. Whereas if they did it on their own, they might not have gotten it done. But you're gonna use us to help you look like that superstar.
Yeah,
Does
and
that
I can
kinda
give,
answer the question?
I can give you an example too. This happened to me in Rocky Mount where it was again, and we didn't talk about this, but it was a package unit. And by the way, package units are cheaper to replace, but they also break and get replaced they last 50% compared to a regular split system. And one of the biggest issues with those package units is the heat exchanger, because it's outside, it's in the elements, expanding, contracting, humidity, rain, all that sort of thing causes them to rust and crack. So we had a situation where folks moved in, and pretty much in day 2, they call us and they say that the heat exchanger is cracked. I mean, there was holes in the heat exchanger, but guess what? They actually had an HVAC inspection, and the HVAC inspector didn't catch it. So they did a home inspection, it wasn't caught. HVAC inspector probably just did a crappy job, didn't catch it. Agent ran the system and it was blowing hot air. It wasn't making any weird noises. Day 2, we replaced the system for them. So if you cross your T's and dot your I's, you do your fiduciary responsibility. That's where Old Republic has that clause that says that we will cover unknown pre-existing conditions for you. Because that obviously was pre-existing, but it was unknown to the seller, the buyer, the inspectors, and the agent. So because of it, we have that in our plan to be able to cover you.
Is that at any level plan that they get? Okay. But you can't set the expectation with the buyer that they're going to get a whole new system if it breaks after closing. I think that's sometimes where they get sideways.
What I would always tell them is, and this is what I tell my agents, is that really the person who decides predominantly what will be fixed or replaced is going to be the contractor that goes out there.
Yeah.
I had someone that said, you've been out there 3 times. I expect a new system. And it's like, well, we looked at the notes. But, well, first time it was the fact that they had a dirty filter. Second time they had a $13 contact that failed on it. And the third time their condensation line was blocked. So there's a special thing that's called a float. And when the float fills up, it turns the system off, because if not, it'll overflow and it'll collapse the ceiling. Would we replace the system on that? No, it's just basically all of those were just little maintenance issues. And it just so happened that they happened, periodically throughout the year. So I had to call the agent and say, look, we're not going to replace the system on that. But if a contractor goes out and goes, dang, this thing is bad, and if we fix it, it's just like, we're going to fix it today and replace it tomorrow. Well, then we're just going to replace it today, because we're basically losing money at that point, because one, the repair is expensive, and then we're still replacing it. So we might as well do the initial, pull the Band-Aid off all at one pull or tug, instead of trying to prolong the situation.
So for clarity, if you had an HVAC inspection and you know that the unit's not great, but it's still working, then would it benefit the buyer to get a warranty or no? It would.
Always benefits the buyer to get a warranty.
Okay.
Always.
'Cause they know up front that like it's corroded and like it's not going to last much longer.
Yep. But I always say to my agents, I say, we cover ugly and we cover old. We don't age discriminate. So the thing is, if it's ugly and old, doesn't matter. We still cover it. Now, some companies, just so you know, they have in their plan an addendum that says they will determine if they will even mess with the unit if they deem it past life expectancy. So a typical, let's say, for example, package unit, life expectancy is about 12 years. So if that's a 15-year-old unit, they might just say, we're not covering it because it's past life expectancy. Split system is usually about 15 years life expectancy. So if it's an 18-year-old system, again, they might write it out. Or they'll say that it's basically excluded within the first 30 days if failure is caused by some form or shape of rust. What does that mean? Is it rust on the outside? Is it rust that affects the part? Who knows? Now on the coast, as you know, rust is a real issue because you have that salt air, right? Yeah. And unless you actually get a marine grade unit, I don't know if you know that there's such a thing. For example, Carrier makes a marine grade unit. It's the exact same unit you buy at Carrier, but you pay extra money because they take the whole unit and they dip it into anti-corrosion and then they pull it out, dry it, and then they ship it. When I was doing estimating on the coast in the Northwest, those houses along the beach, those were the ones that we would sell to them for a premium, because it would make the system not corrode. With Old Republic, if you spring a leak or have a problem in the heat exchanger because of rust, we're not going to use that as a clause to get out of covering it.
I've got a question. Going back to the example that Stephanie gave, what is the situation in which Old Republic would say that a system has a pre-existing condition and would not cover it?
You want to take that, Troy, or you want me to take it?
That's up to you.
Like for an example, if you had a leak that the Freon was leaking out and the seller, you asked for that during your due diligence and they refill it up with Freon, but the leak is never fixed. And it continues, that hole, that what started out as a little pinhole now gets bigger and bigger. But when that contractor goes out there, he's going to see that hole and he knows that that hole did not just spring in there in 2 days or 2 weeks, or, he can determine, again, it went back to like what Troy said, all this is really based on what the contractor tells us, but he can determine at what point did that hole appear. Was it in the last 2 weeks? Was it in the last 2 days? Or was it from 2 years ago? And that particular situation, that would be a pre-existing condition because they refilled the Freon. They didn't fix the problem.
Right.
So that would be.
I had a situation like that occur. It was up in Summerfield, which is like Reedsville, Eden area, north of Greensboro. And the agent sold the properties kind of as is, almost like that sight unseen. So as soon as the guy turned on his AC systems, they didn't work. We went out there and there wasn't even a drop of refrigerant in it, no Freon. And so he said, there's no way this worked, because the thing is what people don't realize, Freon or refrigerant is oil. It lubricates as it runs through the system. So just like if you had a car that leaks oil, it's basically a recent leak because of the stain that it creates on the concrete, right? It's usually like wet or kind of brown. But what happens if you get out there and there's like no evidence of oil anywhere? It's been so old that it dried out, it evaporated completely. And that's what happened with these properties. So we said, look, we can't cover these because there is no way that these systems work, but we will give you the benefit of the doubt. Pick your contractor, have him go out there, and if he says otherwise, let us know. His contractor went out and says, dang, this thing never worked. This thing has been busted, hasn't had a drop of refrigerant for years. Obviously, simple inspection, simple mechanical test, HVAC inspection, all of them would have caught it. But the thing is, they bought a house as is, sight unseen. So that was the risk that the buyer had to take.
Gotcha.
Of course, it wasn't covered.
I have a quick question, and I know we can come up with scenarios all day. My question is, you have an HVAC inspection. It's clear, clean, whatever. 2 weeks later, 2 months later, the example that you gave happens. What is the case then? It was missed by the inspector, but so our buyer didn't know what was happening. And then Old Republic goes out, finds the issue. That is still a pre-existing condition, even though it was missed, I'm assuming.
Yes, if I can speak on that. So again, that's when I would, or myself or Stephanie, probably Stephanie would reach out to you and say, look, can you give me that report that shows that you had an HVAC inspection? You send the report. If it shows clean, we proceed with that clause that we have, which is unknown pre-existing. Because the fact is that you did your fiduciary responsibility. You had the inspections, you did your final walkthrough. And for real estate agents, all we're asking for is a simple mechanical test. For AC, that means just turn it on. Is there cold air blowing out? If you walk out and look at the unit, does it sound like basically it's a jet taking off, or does it sound like a normal system? You know what I mean? Is there smoke pouring out of the system? If not, then that's a simple mechanical test. We're not asking for you to open up the system and inspect it in such a way to determine if there's a refrigerant leak or if there's a cracked heat exchanger. You just can't do that. So if an inspector misses that, that's our stopgap for you.
Okay.
All right, that's
Wait.
good.
At the end of the day, we as account executives at Old Republic, Troy and I and all the rest of us included, we are here to fight for you. We want that relationship with you to build, to grow, to say, You know, I have done so many transactions with Nathan, and if he says it worked the day of closing, then it worked the day of closing. Here is our inspections to prove it. And we kind of go to bat for you. There's things we can do to help you out on the inside, but you have to let us know that that's going on. And I mean, let us know in the beginning, not after your client's been fighting with Old Republic for perhaps a few weeks or a month or something. You know, that's much easier to put a small flame out than it is a forest fire. So, you know, let us know in the beginning.
This is great. I
Oh,
deal a lot with buyers asking these questions, and a lot of times I have to pull up the, the info sheet and go through and review it with them. And this has just been very helpful for me. So I'm thankful.
And I know for myself, and I'm sure Troy's the same way. I tell all of my agents that I speak with, if your buyer is having questions that you are not comfortable asking, as Troy said, I was a real estate agent before I went to work with
what's
Old
your phone
Republic.
number?
Okay, 910-382-8048.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Click on the resource page.
Okay.
Yes. Now, does that mean I want your buyers calling me at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday to ask me a question? No. But if you want, I just had it this past Saturday. A buyer or agent texted me at 10 o'clock at night asking me a question on what's covered. I answered her. I'm not going to put you off because I've been in your shoes and I know what it's like. And if you've got a buyer asking you a question, you want to get the answer to it before you forget, really. But you called, you asked me the questions that buyer is having, I will get you the answers. Some cases, your buyers may be asking so many questions that it's just best to say, just give me his number or her number and let me call them and I'll take them through the plan. And I will. I'll take them through all their questions and you don't have to worry about it. You've got enough to worry about trying to get that to close. You don't need to be able to sell, to know all the knowledge we have. You just, it's hard. It's hard. So I'll help you with that. I don't mind at all. It's kind of my job.
So if a buyer, if they get the HVAC inspection and their, seller's not agreeing for a warranty or whatever, and they, whatever happens as far as like during DD with the seller agreeing to fix whatever comes up, or if it needs to be replaced or this, that, and the other, it's a good idea for them to reach out and say, hey, this is what happened on my home inspection. What plan do you suggest I get?
Yeah, you can certainly do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to give them a recommendation as far as I definitely think you need the platinum and I'm not going to talk to you about any of the others.
Right.
I'm going to let them know what each plan covers and let them make the determination on what's best for them.
Right.
It sounds like there's already a concern or a possible issue. You need to go with the ultimate or the platinum.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's what I'm thinking.
definitely.
And just one other thing, I know Brandon here in Raleigh, I mean, the market's just brutal. I mean, it's just so insane over here right now. And a lot of the areas are now, but I've heard that the term, we're not really doing warranties now because it just muddies the water because, you have to have the cleanest offer. So just a couple suggestions. I know some agents now are putting on the offer to purchase because they're not asking for the seller that the buyer will pay and provide the warranty. One, because the thing is, yes, you don't want to muddy the waters now, but when you go to close and there's problems, guess what? Your buyer is going to muddy the waters for you after the sale. And then all of a sudden your liability does go up. So it's a concern. People don't realize that last year, because of COVID, we took on 48,000 more service claims than we should have taken on. The question is why? It's because everybody's living out of their homes. So everything is being used more, is exponential. So because of it, higher claims. So if you're going to the closing and you're not getting a warranty, the fact of the matter is that there's a probability that's much higher that you're going to have a significant problem in the home this year opposed to years previous because of the usage. Another thing to keep in mind too is that we will allow up to 30 days for your client to buy a warranty and we'll just backdate it to the original close date, but just have them do it before there's a problem, because there's a problem now, they're going to have to fix it, then they can add the warranty. And one other suggestion, if you get to closing, they don't have the warranty, no one's providing it. Let's say, for example, you have that waiver signed. Another option you might have is if you want to CC, if it's Stephanie's territory or myself up in the Raleigh area, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm CCing you with Stephanie. If you want to reach out to them and get a warranty after the fact, you have 30 days. Here is their contact information. Save that, because that's another thing, because I know Stephanie, when she was a realtor, was sued, but the lawsuit was dropped. And why?
Because my seller offered and paid for a 1-year home warranty.
Yeah.
So, you know, Troy's actually touching on things that I was wanting to talk to you about, because it's the guts and glory of being a real estate agent, bridged with being account executive for Old Republic. So it's a great thing to have both sides of that fence and know what is expected of you and know how to best benefit you as the realtor. So yeah, definitely. That's one of the stories that I wanted to touch on, to let you know that, you know, when I started in real estate, it wasn't, all my brokers in charge said, it's not a matter of if you're going to get sued, it's when you're going to get sued. And I'm like, I'm not going to get sued. I'm going to do everything right. You know, hands clean here. Until the sheriff showed up at my door and delivered the lawsuit. And I'll give you the story, but there's a few other things that I wanted to fill in prior to. So as Troy was saying, you know, he's the world traveler. Well, I was born and raised in Swansboro. As you can tell, our accents are probably a little different. I started kindergarten in Swansboro and graduated in Swansboro, and that was not yesterday. So I have the luxury of life experiences on my hands. My father-in-law, here's a great little tidbit of information and fact that y'all would love. My father-in-law was actually born in the Ocracoke Lighthouse. His father was a lighthouse keeper, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, I am a Eastern North Carolina native and go by the Holly Ridge office periodically. Last year, like everybody, I kind of took off, not just for COVID, but I also was going through breast cancer. So what a great time to have breast cancer when the whole world is shut down and you don't really miss anything. So that was pretty good timing, but I'm feeling better now. I'm out and about, and I did stop by the Holly Ridge office and drop off some new plans not too long ago. So hope everything's going well with that end of it. Troy does a great HVAC class, right? I mean, did y'all like learn
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is good. And as account executives, we have all had the privy of his knowledge of HVACs, and he's kind of taught us just like he taught you. So, you know, we can do this class again. And I know Troy won't mind when you go back and you tell agents, man, you missed out. You needed to be in that class today because that was some good stuff. So I know
and Doug, I just want to mention one other thing. So if you felt this was helpful, I actually have created another class. So that's going to be on plumbing. It's not as extensive, obviously, so it's not going to be as in depth, but it's mainly going to be on water heaters. I'll teach you how to know how old the water heater is, life expectancy, average cost to replace, tank versus tankless, but then also switch over into poly. Basically, how to identify poly. How to know when it's a red flag. What are the areas to look for leakage? And then another thing that a lot of agents don't realize is that with poly now, majority, and I don't know of any homeowners insurance now that are writing insurance plans that I know of on actual poly. They're starting to ask that question. And if you say it has poly, they're going to write it out. So maybe that's one thing I would really recommend is to start calling some of your insurance brokers and seeing if there's any policies out there for that. So as they continue to age, this is going to be not an expensive repair, but the damage is just insane. And I have one other thing I incorporate into that, and that is just like a cool technology that's available. If you ever sell a home or you're selling a home and you have a buyer, let's say, and they go, I'm really scared about having upstairs laundry because of, you know, water always falls down. I'm going to show you a cool product that's like $200 that pretty much eliminates a problem for your buyer. Give them some real peace of mind. So if that's something you want to do, we can always schedule that. Since I know this is kind of best practices, I can do that one as well.
When you send over that pamphlet about the HVAC that we talked about earlier, send me some Tuesdays that work same time and we'll get it on the book.
Okay. Perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so just stuff like that that is us at Old Republic trying to earn your business. I mean, we're wanting to earn your business. Business earned is much better than business bought. I think any of us can agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
It's all the little nuggets and the extra mile that we take. Like, if you've got a question, here's my cell phone number, call me. I want to help you. That's the nuggets and the personal touch that we are going to use to retain your business. Because once that business is built, we're going to make sure we hold on for it, for life. You are ours. You are in our protection. We're going to bring you into the fold and protect you and your homeowners. So, just know that it's not a business for us, but it kind of, it is a business, just like selling homes is a business for you. So yeah, we built our business with real estate agents in mind. And I don't know if you can kind of see this right here. It's a service card. They're going to be dropped off to your offices like that. What this is, it gives your property that you closed on, so your buyer's information, and right in, I'm doing it backwards here. So right in here, it tells what service was done. And this is a reminder for you to pick up the phone and call that buyer and say, hey, so I see that you had your air condition worked on. So what happened? I mean, just curious. Is that a question? Or you're,
No, no,
oh,
I'm
you
talking
were
to my
waving
daughter.
off someone. Okay.
My daughter.
Um,
I get those
it's a
emails,
good,
Stephanie.
good reminder. I'm sorry.
I get those emails too.
Yes.
No.
Yes, and I mean, it's a great reminder to reach out to your buyer, and before you hang up the phone, hey, while I got you on the phone, you happen to know anybody wanting to buy or sell a property? I mean, a warm call is much better than a cold call, right? So it's a great opportunity to reach out for them. And that's just one of the things that we do at Old Republic to try to make you the superstar to your people. So now let's just stop for a minute. Troy just kind of touched on it just a few moments ago. So if we think about the homes that we closed on last year, 2019, the end of 2018, could any of us have fathomed that those homes that we were closing on would soon become the buyers' offices that they're going to work in every day, classrooms for their children, gymnasiums that they're going to go work out in? No, none of us had an idea that the properties we were closing in late 18. See, I lost a year. In 2019 and 2020 would become our entire world, a place where we live 24/7. And not just we live, our entire family is living in there. So the systems and appliances are used a lot more. And like Troy said, 48,000 more claims last year than the previous year. Well, that was equivalent to $28 million in service calls to satisfy those claims. That's where having a good financially strong, that's the key word, warranty company is going to work for you, because we have the money to fix those problems instead of denying problems. I know, and Troy knows, we're like a baseball game, Old Republic is. We count every number under the sun. And our loss ratios were considerably high this past year because everybody's home using those systems and appliances a lot more than what they did in previous years. So if you got your people a home warranty, you did great for them. And that's good. That's good. That's what we like. We want to earn their business just like I'm earning yours. So yeah, it was a complete mess last year, but we got through it. And now it looks like we're coming out on the other side. So how do we move forward? How do we move forward in a market where you're getting multiple offers within a few days of a property? Right? Are you seeing that? You're going out there beating the bushes with your buyers, just praying that one of those 20 offers that you submitted gets accepted. I know, I was there. I mean, the market weren't quite as crazy then, but I was there. So the ticket is seller coverage. Now just follow my train of thought here. You're going to a listing appointment and that seller says, well, Allison and Doug, I really like you guys. And I think that Ocean Air is doing a fantastic job here on the coast. But that agent from Coldwell Banker Seacoast said that they would do my listing for 5%. Can you match it? I mean, has this happened? Is it a possibility? Sellers are getting pretty greedy now. They want to keep all the money they can for themselves, right? Yeah. So let's just take that scenario and say, well, Mr. and Miss Seller, I'm going to do you one better. I'm not going to lower my commission to meet what another company might be doing, but I'm going to pay for your seller coverage in the form of a home warranty that will transfer to our buyer at closing, which now becomes a little extra thing that you are offering in the marketplace that maybe no other sellers are offering. So now what have I just done? I've gotten you, real estate agent, to pay for a home warranty. Gee, thanks a lot, Steph. I mean, you're doing me a huge favor. But think about it. If you're selling a property for $175,000, and I wrote this down somewhere, here it is, $175,000 at 6% commission, that's $10,500. If they wanted you to drop your commission, say to 5%, then that $175,000 commission now becomes $8,750. Well, you just saw in the slide, a home warranty starts at $430. So which way is better for you? I would definitely go with the $430. But here's the kicker, and you definitely want to talk to your CPA about this. But when you pay for that home warranty for your seller to keep from lowering your commission, that now became a cost of doing business. And it is a 100% tax write-off because it's what it costed you that amount of money to get that listing to do your job. If
That's
you
a great point. And,
yeah,
and not only on the sell side, everybody, and we probably got to get wrapping up because I know people have appointments to get to, but not only on the sell side is that an excellent point, but in a market where we're not going to be able to get sellers that we don't represent to pay for warranties for our buyers, this is a ton of value to be able to provide to them to help them understand why it's worth them spending the money. Now, of course, in a market like we were in a year and a half ago, yeah, we'll tack it on there. That's great. We all know we can't do that right now, with obviously some exceptions, but now you have even more value that you can provide to your clients to help them understand why this is a great idea.
It is a great idea.
And how it's going to save them money, especially in the first year. You never know what's going to happen in the first year when you're owning a property, especially people, and we know so many people do in a market like this, have very little liquidity to be able to cover out-of-pocket repairs, much less due diligence, closing costs, more than 3-5% down payment. This is such an extra level of protection for them. So now you've got great value to provide, not only to your seller clients, but also to buyers.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that I can get very long-winded because real estate was my passion, and now I've just joined warranty with it. And so I'll kind of wrap it up, but it is now more than ever more important that we figure out how to get that buyer covered that spent every last dime that they have, because their future is your business. And if they are just completely tapped out trying to buy that house and something were to happen in the first few months, first year, that they haven't rebuilt their savings yet, you could be looking at financial devastation for the family. And I know I wouldn't want that on my shoulders. And And trust me, when that happens, they're going to reach out to you because you made me buy this house and you didn't get me a home warranty, and it's going to be the agent's fault no matter what. So just try to figure it out some way, shape, or form. Like Troy said, 30 days after closing, that buyer can get a home warranty. In the meantime, we're here to earn your business. For those of you that are currently doing business with us, I know I have a few there on the coast. Thank you so much. And anytime we can help to get you more business, don't hesitate to reach out. I mean, is that fair enough?
Absolutely. That sounds great. And we really appreciate both of you guys and look forward to working with you even more in the future. Thanks for all the value you provide for our company so we can provide it in turn for our clients. Stephanie, thanks for walking in the office. It's probably been 2.5 years ago when we first connected. We were in our old location and you walked in. And Troy, thank you for walking in the office in Raleigh. So now we have a great contact up here. Thank you for this. Look forward to connecting with you so we can schedule the plumbing one. You guys have a fantastic day.
Thanks,
Thank you
y'all.
so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.